everyone, welcome to another video. In this one, we are going to talk about the 2020 first round of the NFL Draft and predominantly the New York aspect of it, what the Jets did, what the Giants did, what should they have done, what could they have done, and did they make the right decision. All along, we knew that, honestly, for both teams, the big need was offensive line. They both have really good young quarterbacks. They have star running backs in Saquon Barkley and Le'Veon Bell, but they both had needs at offensive line to get the most out of these players in the backfield, get the most out of the quarterback and the most out of the running back. The young guys need more time to throw the ball. When you are a rookie or still young quarterback in the NFL, the game is coming to you very, very fast. And if you don't have time as it is and the pass rush is getting to you fast, it just becomes that much harder to make your reads, find your targets, and make the right decisions. But if you improve your offensive line, you just give the quarterback a little more time so that the game isn't going as fast to them. They have more time to read the offense, read the defense, and really be able to make plays. I mean, that is the big thing for the quarterbacks. It's the ability to find who's open, get it to him accurately, make the right decision. You know, it really isn't that complex, but it's just that we've seen the Giants in particular, this is my team I want to talk about first, they've been trying to figure out the offensive line for a while now. I mean, even when they had Eli a couple years ago, I mean, we saw right away, 2 years ago comes to mind the opening game against the Dallas Cowboys where they're just doing basic stunts and boom, in the backfield all the time. The Giants had no communication. And it's like, well, they had just made a big free agency signing at the time when they got Nate Solder, and it's turned out to not work. And that's very unfortunate because Solder was regarded as one of the better offensive tackles in football when he was with New England. All of a sudden, it comes to the Giants, nowhere close to the same player. I mean, that was a huge overpay. Now, I mean, had Solder just been who he was, I mean, that's one of the frustrating things. It kind of reminds me, like I've said about the Mets with somebody like Edwin Diaz, but it's just like, just be who you are. It's not like you're giving a bunch of money to a player who's never proven anything, to a player who's never been good. I mean, they're not even asking you to be amazing. Just be yourself. Just be the person that you've been in the past. And Solder has not been able to do that. So it's just like something that the Giants really thought that they at least got a head start on, at least kind of address the offensive line, has not happened. And that's what forced them, honestly, to take an offensive tackle. And the Giants take Andrew Thomas from Georgia with the 4th pick in the draft. And you know what? It's the right move because it's just like you need to protect your quarterback. Because the thing is that, like, you know what? One of the big things about this draft is that there were 3 things that people talked about a lot: the quarterbacks, the offensive linemen, and the wide receivers. Now, I had written about the Giants having interest in potentially Justin Herbert leading up to the draft and why I thought that was a huge mistake. I didn't like that at all, especially considering the comment that Joe Judge made earlier in the offseason about this whole idea of, like, no position is safe, every position is a battle, and not fully committing to Daniel Jones, which I didn't love because of what the Giants have already been through with Daniel Jones, and it's only his 2nd year. Last season, fans were like, you know what? The Giants, they really need some help on defense. Why not get Josh Allen? Why not try to get a player on defense? And all of a sudden, the Giants just kind of, I don't want to say shocked everybody, but we knew that they could take a quarterback, but with the 2 first-round picks they had, we didn't think it'd be the number 6 pick. And all of a sudden, they took Daniel Jones, which is another thing we didn't expect because the quarterback that we had heard about in last year's draft more was Dwayne Haskins. And it's just like, okay, well, do the Giants feel crazy about Haskins? We don't really know. But all of a sudden, they take Jones, and they take him with the 6th pick. And at first, the first reaction was everybody was not thrilled. I mean, people were definitely on top of Gettleman, giving him a lot of heat for it. And then all of a sudden, you're like, well, you just brought Eli back, because that was the other thing too, is that, like, with cap space and all that, do you give Eli another year? Do you let him walk? Do you try to get a quarterback now, maybe a quarterback next year, try to let Eli get one more chance at it? And it's like they kind of did both, which that wasn't really one of the things people were talking about, but they did. And it's just like, okay, we have Eli start the season, kind of the same old, little checkdowns, nothing real crazy happening. Doesn't look like you're going to be a successful team. So they go to Daniel Jones, and he wins that game against Tampa, which they could have lost, but regardless, they win. And he looked good. I mean, he put up yards, he put up touchdowns, he made big plays with his arm, with his feet, the turnovers. That was a big thing. But it's just like, number one, that's going to happen for young quarterbacks. And number 2, that's going to happen to young quarterbacks that don't have time, that have a bad offensive line. So it's just like, you know what? You have Daniel Jones. You have Saquon Barkley. Darius Slayton was a really nice pick last year. He looked really good in his first year. We'll see if he could also improve along with Daniel Jones. Maybe they could have a nice tandem going for years to come. But also you have Shepard. And you also have Golden Tate. And it's just like, that's a good offense. I mean, like that. Those are good weapons for Daniel Jones to throw the ball to. And you have Evan Ingram, if he could ever stay healthy for a full season. That's a nice tight end as well. Like, does Daniel Jones have the time? And no, he doesn't. You may want to take another star player. You may want to take an Isaiah Simmons or maybe a C.J. Henderson and trade back for him, or the D tackle that the Carolina Panthers took, or maybe one of the different offensive linemen, or one of these big time receivers that were in this draft. You know, like there were a lot more attractive picks. There were a lot of picks that people maybe, or like more well-known players that people get excited about. When you say Andrew Thomas, or for the Jets, when you say Becton, you're like, okay, it's an offensive lineman. Cool. You know what I mean? It's like we don't really know these guys too well. We don't really evaluate them in college as much. And even like when we're watching a college game, we're not like, oh, well, let's look at the right tackle. Or let's look at the left tackle. Let's look at the guards. Let's just watch them. Let's not really watch what's going on in the game. Because even in real football, we don't really do that. We'll just be watching the game, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, they got to the quarterback pretty quick. I guess the offensive line stinks. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of the evaluation that the casual fan would do, because we're not all offensive line scouts. You know what I mean? We're just fans of the sports teams that we want to do well, and we know they can't because the quarterbacks don't have the time. Drafting Thomas and drafting Becton, does that all of a sudden, in the snap of a finger, solve the Jets and solve the Giants? I was like, okay, well, they got the one offensive lineman. Now both teams are going to be in the playoffs, and they're both going to be really good forever. No, it doesn't work that way. I mean, that is one of the very tricky things about this, is that with the offensive line, since there are 5 guys, you have to take it one piece at a time. And sometimes it could kind of be 1 year at a time. I think the perfect blueprint, especially for the Giants, is in their division with the Dallas Cowboys. The way 1 year you take Smith, 1 year you take Frederick, 1 year you take Zach Martin. And all of a sudden, then you can try to fill in with the other 2 spots, whether it's free agency or just other players later in the draft or trade or whatever. And it's just like, it takes a year at a time. And it's not just like one thing you could all of a sudden, boom, overhaul, you're there. And for the Jets, I mean, they couldn't get Conklin. You know, we know the Browns got him. But the Jets, I mean, they got McGovern, and they tried to make little moves to improve the offensive line a little bit. We'll see if that helps. You know, I hope it does, because the thing is that for the Jets, they really need to decide what they want to do with Sam Darnold, because this is his 3rd year. They really have to see what he's made of. They have to see what Le'Veon Bell is made of, because Le'Veon Bell was not his normal self his first season back, you know, after the holdout. His first year with the Jets was not great. You do want to evaluate your players more and know exactly what you have to know. And do the Jets maybe need to take another quarterback? Do they need a different running back? So there definitely are still question marks that have to be answered, and the only way to do that is when they actually play games. But I do think that these were the right picks. Now, honestly, it's opinion-based which offensive lineman you take, because some people like Thomas, some people like Becton, some people like Wirfs, some people like Willis. You know what I mean? Like, it just changes from person to person. We all have our preference. And I think that for the Giants, you know, Andrew Thomas looked like the solid pick, the safe pick, which I like that, because you don't want to take a chance. You don't want to be like, oh, well, this guy has good potential, or this guy's good, but he's had injury problems. You just want the guy that you know is a solid player, nothing crazy, will just get the job done. That's all you have to do. You don't need to be flashy. You don't need to be someone that is craves a lot of attention. You just have to fit in. I mean, that is the big thing. You could have a player that has a lot of talent, but if he doesn't fit on your team, it doesn't really work as well. You know what I mean? So I do think that's important. And for me, we talk a lot about, you know what, protecting the quarterback. Protect the quarterback. That's what I've been saying the whole video. You know, we know how important it is to protect Daniel Jones or protect Sam Darnold. But I think another big thing is these running backs, because I think that if you could balance the running game as well, that also could help the quarterback out tremendously, because then all of a sudden play action works a little more. Or maybe the defense is focusing more on the running back than they are on the quarterback, and it just opens up some passing lanes to make those reads even easier, because the game, again, still is going fast. And it just makes it easier for the quarterbacks to succeed. It takes the load off them a little bit, because that's one of the ways the quarterbacks could avoid taking so many hits. Hand the ball off a little more. I do think that we are in a bit of a pass-heavy league right now, and I think that we don't run the ball as much as we should. And I feel like, you know, you look at the teams last year, the teams that passed the most, whether it was the Rams, the Cowboys, the Falcons, the Chargers, the Buccaneers, those are the 5 teams that, you know, they passed the most. They had a bunch of yards, and we love the passing game. none of them were in the postseason. It's like, you don't need to be completely run dominant, which the team in the NFC, the San Francisco 49ers, did, and it got them to the Super Bowl, almost won the Super Bowl, pretty much being mostly running, like 80% running, you know what I mean? So you can do it, but it's like you need the balance. And that's where the Chiefs come in. And when you have that star quarterback and you have a resemblance of a running game and you have talent at the skill positions at receiver and tight end, and you have an offensive line that's good enough, I mean, you really need the quarterback to every now and then step up and make some big plays, because the 49ers pass rush is just so good that it's very hard to, criticize the Chiefs offensive line for that, because it's like, what offensive line wouldn't have trouble against the 49ers? You know what I mean? Like, they just have so much talent. And again, like, similar to the offensive line for the Giants, think of the defensive line for the San Francisco 49ers. Like, they got it one piece at a time. It's like, okay, 1 year it's Buckner, 1 year it's Armstead, 1 year it's Bosa. You know what I mean? Like, it's one piece at a time. It's 1 year at a time. But then all of a sudden, when it all comes together, you have a really good functioning unit. So I think that the Giants, they have to look at these blueprints from the other teams. We got Thomas, but it's like the Giants defense still stinks, honestly. It really does. You know what I mean? Like, no sugarcoating. No, trying to get around it. We know the Giants defense is really, really bad. I mean, that's just what it was last year. It was the worst in the division. The Giants could score plenty of points still, even with the bad offensive line, just because the pure talent they have on offense, but they couldn't stop anybody at the other end. So you're having these shootouts against the Washington Redskins where you're going to overtime, and you have, these quarterbacks that really should not be getting rushing touchdowns against you are. The Giants defense just was not good. And that's why, like, Justin Herbert, I was crazy about. Isaiah Simmons, I could understand it, because this is a guy that he definitely looks like a special talent. You know what I mean? Just the way that he could play multiple positions, he could fly around the field. There aren't many players on defense like him. You know what I mean? Like, there aren't just a bunch of Isaiah Simmons out there. So the fact that he was available, he was the one guy that was intriguing to me. The one guy that, like, if it was an offensive lineman, I'd be perfectly fine with, because we know the Giants need offensive line and need defense. But you know what? Let's start with the offensive line first. Let's get the quarterback and the running back going first, and let's see what happens. And I think the same thing for the Jets, because when they take Becton, you see a guy who is 364 pounds. I mean, you might want to sign his dad as well. Those are both two big fellas to have on the O-line. But still, what I like about Becton is that even though he is a big guy, the strength and just the athleticism that he has for a big man is really, really impressive. And I like Becton pulling. I like him moving around the offensive line, not being a stationary blocker. I like him being a lead blocker potentially for Le'Veon Bell, because I just felt like Bell, he got a couple yards. He didn't have any big plays, any explosive plays where he really, changed the game. Plays that Saquon started to have later in the year for the Giants. We didn't see that of Le'Veon Bell. We did not see that big burst where it's just like, boom, a huge gain, and all of a sudden that changes the field position and the drive is really off to a good start. We didn't see that from Le'Veon. You know what I mean? Even though we know he's a good running back, we didn't see it. And I just hope that Becton could be that guy that, like, Le'Veon Bell could just follow him, and boom, he has some holes, and Le'Veon Bell could take off and get some big plays, because that would also help Sam Darnold out greatly, because we know the Jets defense did improve last year, led by Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator. He did a really good job with that team, and definitely making their talent overachieve. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't expect the Jets defense to be as good as it ended up being late in the year, but it did. So you want to build on that. We don't know if Adam Gase is the right coach for the Jets. And then Daniel Jones going to have to learn another new system, with Pat Shurmur being gone. So how will that work out? Will Jones be better? Will he be worse? Will he be the same? Because the other thing that I'm worried about for the Jets as well is that, like, if the Jets don't do good this year, which, it's the Jets, so we don't really expect them to. We never really quite know. Even last year, we thought they might have a good year, and they didn't. So we really just never know what to fully expect out of the Jets. And it's like, if they have another bad year, Adam Gase could be gone. And then it's like, okay, well, that's the third system that Sam Darnold has to learn under. It's very hard to figure out if he's the guy, because if all of a sudden, let's just say that the Jets have a pretty bad year, Gase gets fired, Darnold's okay. He's not great. He's pretty good, all right? He's all right. But then the year after that, the Jets get another coach, whoever it is, and Sam Darnold does great. You know what I mean? Like, he has an amazing season. All of a sudden, guess what time it is? Time to pay your quarterback. And that is going to be a big part in both of these franchises, for the Jets and for the Giants, when they have to give the contract to the quarterback, because that is where everything changes for a team. Because it's like the quarterback takes up so much of the cap space, it is very hard to fill in for those other positions. It's harder to find those other pieces to fill in. It's hard to get the big names on defense, or the receivers, or the other offensive linemen, and what have you. It just isn't as easy. So I do think that we have to be very careful of, how do these quarterbacks look under these new systems? Will it be better or worse, the same? I think all that's going to be really important. And you hope that these offensive linemen are not busts. You know what I mean? Like for the Jets, Quentin Williams did not look like the worthy high draft pick that the Jets took him at. So they gotta hope that maybe he can step up and be like the top pick that he was, and they have to hope the same for Becton, and that he is who he looks like he could be, like a big time offensive lineman, whether it's pass blocking or run blocking. So I do want to see that happen for both these teams. Obviously, I do want to see them win. I don't want to have to every single week talk about how bad they are. We want to see these teams win. You can't stress that enough. So you really hope that does happen. And then like some of the other things for the rest of the draft. I mean, let's not make this video too long. But I mean, Joe Burrow, Chase Young, pretty standard. We kind of expected that. Jeff Okudah to Lions. Again, pretty standard. Lions could have traded back, but that is a really good pick there. Trying to get someone on defense. Losing Darius Slay, having him fill in. We'll see how that works out, and I hope that he can fill in for those shoes. And then for the Dolphins, I mean, this was a really funny one, them taking Tua. And the reason why I say it's funny, only because of all the smoke screens they were saying, the way the Dolphins are like, oh no, the medicals, I don't think we're going to take them. Maybe we're looking to trade back. Maybe we don't want, maybe we like Herbert better. And everyone's like, oh, the Dolphins aren't taking Tua. I guess we don't have to move up. You know what I mean? Because that was the big thing. Like, the reason why they were doing that, so teams didn't try to, they're like, oh, well, maybe Tua could fall to us, so we don't really need to trade up to get him. Dolphins were like, nope, psych, we're taking him. Because that's the thing. They're like, at first, we felt like the Dolphins were going to take him. Then they're like, They're trying to make it sound like they weren't when they still were. I thought that was really smart. I liked that a lot, honestly. Because my thing is like, why tell the rest of the teams what you're going to do so they could trade up in front of you? Like, all of a sudden, if the Dolphins were just like, we're taking Tua, no matter what. Like, they just kept saying it over and over. What if another team tried to sneak in there and try to trade up with the Lions or with the Giants to try to take Tua from the Dolphins? That could have been a big problem for them, because here's a guy who, like, you know what? If his body is okay, his hip and everything is all right, we know that Tua could be a really good quarterback. So I do like what the Dolphins did there. And then the Chargers taking Herbert, I thought that was great, because it's just like Phillip Rivers leaves, boom, you might have your next quarterback just like that within the same year. So I thought that was a really nice move by Los Angeles there. I like that a lot. The Panthers taking Derek Brown, I thought that was really good. They have to improve their defense, no doubt about it. A lot of good quarterbacks in their division. Now with Tom Brady there, so you're going to need that pressure. I like that. The Cardinals taking Isaiah Simmons, I loved that, honestly, because he's a guy that we said the Giants could take at 4, and the Cardinals got him at 8. So I think that's really good, because they've had a good offseason, and it looks like they got something going in that offense. Cliff Kingsbury, Kyler Murray, and then DeAndre Hopkins. You obviously already have Larry Fitzgerald. Now all of a sudden you add Isaiah Simmons to that defense. Who knows? Maybe the Cardinals could show some improvement and be closer to a playoff team. And especially if the playoffs do expand, all of a sudden the Cardinals could sneak in. So I do like that a lot. Jaguars taking Henderson. Makes sense with the corners they lost with Ramsey and Boye. The Browns taking Jedrick Wills Jr. I liked that a lot. That probably was one of my favorite picks of the entire draft, honestly. Because it's like we think about the Browns and how it's like they want to be so star player happy and just like so star driven, like Odell and Jarvis and Chubb and Baker. Oh my gosh, look at the skill positions. They have so much talent. But Baker didn't have the time to get it to those guys. So it's like you sign Conklin. I like that a lot. Then you draft another offensive lineman. I love that. And, also you've got Austin Hoop, the Browns. I mean, as long as they don't brown it, as long as they don't be the Cleveland Browns. Like, on paper, again, like, they have the talent, and now they have a better offensive line. Like, the Browns, I mean, if they can't do it with this team, I don't know when they're going to do it, honestly. You know what I mean? Like, this is the team that they really should be able to win some games and finally get back into the playoffs. So, I mean, we will see what happens, though, because with the personalities they have, anything is possible. They had to change their coach again. So, we will see what happens there. The Jets, we talked about Becton, obviously. The Raiders taking Ruggs, that was pretty interesting because there were better, like, pure receivers on the board, but they love speed. So, I mean, I understand that. Go with him. The Buccaneers trading for Wirfs, that's another pick I really liked. I mean, that's the thing. You know what? A lot of these teams took offensive linemen, so it's like there's no shame in what the Jets and Giants did, honestly. There's no reason to feel regret that's like, oh, we didn't take the star player, we didn't take Judy or CD Lamb or Isaiah Simmons or some of these other big time names. It's okay to take the offensive lineman because it's like in the long run it could be worth it, and it'll just make you all around better team, not a flashy team, but a better team. I mean, the fact that the Buccaneers were willing to trade up to make it happen, they were like, we have to get him. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they didn't have to trade up, but they're like, we need to because we have to get him. So to take Tristan Wirfs to protect Tom Brady, I thought that was extremely important because, like, you added Gronk, and we know that you have Mike Evans or Chris Godwin, but the fact that you added offensive linemen, that's a really good move. So I do like these teams that took the offensive linemen. They're like, you know what? We don't need to go for overkill. It's like, you know what? The Browns could take another receiver, or, you know what? the Buccaneers could take another receiver and really had just a crazy amount of weapons for Tom Brady. Brady can't get the ball to the weapons we have already if he doesn't have an offensive line. So I do think that was a really smart move by Arizona. I loved the 49ers taking the defensive tackle. Trade one of their star defensive tackles to Indianapolis, get the draft pick, and then fill right in with another defensive tackle. Like, that was perfect right there. You saved money, and you still, didn't hurt yourself too much, because what made the 49ers so good was that pass rush. And it's like, okay, well, you still have a really good defensive tackle. At least you're hoping that he really could fill in for the void. The Broncos taking Judy. Obviously, that's a good move. They still have to figure out exactly who they want their quarterback to be. Is it Locke? We will find out there. The Cowboys taking CeeDee Lamb. Obviously, he was a big name, and the Cowboys, they like their stars. So that could be a big deal for Dak, have another target, because they already have the offensive line. So it's like they're allowed to do something like this. Whereas this is a team that didn't have an offensive line, maybe they would have had to take one of these tackles. But the fact that they already have the line, they have the ability to take the receiver, and now don't have to worry about any kind of risk. So I do think that was a really good move for the Cowboys. And obviously the big one, like the big national storyline, it has to be Jordan Love with the Packers. I mean, we know that. My reaction isn't different than anybody else. I feel that this really, the way I look at it is that I feel bad for Packer fans. I really do, because, here's your team that is one game away from the Super Bowl. Looked like the team was improving, from last year, and you're back in the playoffs and what have you, and Aaron Rodgers is still doing his thing. You have Aaron Jones with the running game, and you made the signings on defense, getting the Smiths, Sedarius, and Preston, putting pressure on quarterbacks, and it's like all of a sudden the 49ers run all over you, and boom, your season's over, and they go to the Super Bowl and you don't. So it's like, okay, well, you know what? We have a first-round pick. Let's try to get the defense, or maybe protect Aaron even more, or just get another good player. Nope, we're taking a quarterback. And it was just so crazy to me, because if Aaron Rodgers was really, really getting up there in age, all right, you understand it. If Aaron Rodgers only had a year or two left on his deal, okay, makes sense. But neither one of those things are true. Aaron Rodgers is getting older, but we've seen quarterbacks age well before, even what's going on now, obviously, with Breeze and Brady. Aaron Rodgers obviously could still play at a high level, so you're not worried about that. He has plenty of years left on his deal, 4 years, so you're not worried about that. Why now? You know what I mean? Do the Packers love Jordan Love? I mean, no pun intended there, but do they like Jordan Love that much to where they're like, we need him now, even though Aaron's contract is 4 years away? The fact that people are saying Aaron Rodgers to the Patriots as a potential rumor, that is just insanity. You know what I mean? I don't mean the idea is crazy, but I just if it did happen, that would be crazy, just because it's wow. You know what I mean? The Patriots, they lose Brady and fill in with Aaron Rodgers. It's just of course they do. Evil Empire is back. You know what I mean? Just something like that wouldn't really surprise any of us, honestly. Just if there was one team that could pull it off, it would be the Patriots. You know what I mean? It just would. That's the way it's gone. But I just really think that it is unfortunate for Aaron, for Packer fans. It's really, this is how we're going to get from being the NFC Championship game to the Super Bowl with Jordan Love? No, it isn't. So I didn't really feel like it was the time, honestly, because it's oh, well, you know what the Packers did before with Favre and Rodgers. These were two completely different situations, so I don't really think you could say that. And that's why I can't love the pick. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe we will eventually, when all of a sudden, if Jordan Love becomes a really good quarterback and the Packers win another Super Bowl because of him, then we'll say, okay, it was the right move. But right now, it just doesn't seem like the right time for the move. And it's not like Jordan Love was going to be in another draft a couple years later. Even though we have 4 more years of Rodgers, we don't think that in the next 4 drafts there will be another quarterback like Jordan Love. That's a problem. You know what I mean? You think that he really is the guy when you already have Aaron Rodgers. I don't know. That definitely was puzzling for me, no doubt about it. And then we'll close out with the Seahawks picking Brooks over Queen. I thought that was pretty interesting, because it's the reaction from when the Ravens took Queen was through the roof. Everyone was just oh my gosh, the Ravens got Patrick Queen. It's a major thing, and that he's a really good linebacker. LSU going side to line to sideline. And it's just some people say, well, then why was he the 28th pick? And like I said before, it's the fit. That's a really big thing, is fit, because he is kind of undersized. He's not a huge linebacker, but he is very athletic, and he has good football IQ. With the big defensive lineman that the Ravens have taking up, space and just, protecting Queen at linebacker, is that between Campbell, Williams, and now Derek Wolfe, it's you know what? Now Patrick Queen really gets to do his job and really gets to, make plays and tackle people, whether it's the running back or the receivers, or cover tight ends in coverage. He gets to do a lot more stuff because he has the defensive lineman, protecting him and kind of shielding him. So again, it is about fit. It's if you don't have a really good defensive line, then Patrick Queen doesn't fill in as well. But the Ravens do, so it works. You know what I mean? So again, it's about fit. And then the Titans taking offensive tackle, I like that. The other thing, the Miami Dolphins taking the offensive tackle, Austin Jackson, I like that a lot because like you get Tua and you get him protection within the same draft, both in the first round. I love that for the Dolphins. I thought that was really, really smart. That was another good move by them. Could you imagine if all of a sudden the Dolphins go above the Jets? Because we already know the Bills are better than the Jets. So like, can you imagine the Dolphins have like a really good draft? Tua was the guy. They have the protection, and like maybe they use Fitzpatrick this year. We'll see. But all of a sudden the Jets are worse in the division, and like the Patriots, if they get Aaron Rodgers, or they just if Stidham's the guy, or they just find another quarterback because they're the Patriots, and the Jets ended up being in last place with the way things are right now, that would be so unfortunate for them with the way the timing has been. It's like they've been waiting for their moment. They've been waiting for Brady to leave. And it's like he does, but then these other teams are still going to be better than you. That would just be really crazy. But it wouldn't surprise me. That's just the sad thing with the Jets. Is like it has gotten to the point now where it's like stuff like that wouldn't surprise you because they've had so much negativity in their history, especially recently. It's just that's the way it's gone. And then the last one was that the Chiefs taking the running back Clyde. I thought that was really good because it's just like, okay, you already have this explosive offense. Why not just add to it? You know what I mean? Just be even better to try to repeat. So I think it was a pretty good draft. Nothing too crazy. I mean, the Jordan Love thing was, definitely wild. But other than that, I like that the Jets and Giants didn't try to, go over the top. They played it safe, took the smart picks, took the offensive line. And, again, you just hope that those are the right guys, that they transition to the next level correct, and that they do a good job and could just be those same players, stay healthy, and have good long careers. And then, in turn, have the teams be better and actually win some games. And we could talk about winning football in New York. Oh, my gosh. What a concept. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, comment. What did you think about the draft and some of the picks? What other picks could different teams have made that would have been better in your mind? Let me know. Subscribe. Keep on with anything going on the channel. Obviously, we got MLB The Show videos coming. But until the next one, be safe, be smart, be healthy, and see you in the next one.